and welcome to tonight's Bible study. Hopefully, this is transmitting well, and that y'all are hearing tonight. We're redoing last week's study because I had several people who asked me to redo Proverbs 31 because they wanted to hear what I had to say, and unfortunately last week we're not able to hear. So I'll look and see if there's any comments and make sure that if we can hear. Anyway, I'll go ahead and read Proverbs 31 and talk about it. I want to say a couple things first. Proverbs 31 is pretty famous. It's not a proverb by Solomon. As a matter of fact, it's the saying of King Lemuel. The first 9 verses is advice from his mother, and then from verse 10 to verse 31 is the character of a noble woman. And I'm dedicating this lesson to women in general first, because of who they are. And second, I want to mention a few people, obviously women in my life, starting with my mother, my wife, and my 2 daughters. And specifically, the person who I want to mention is Carol Anderson. Last week when I did this, it was her birthday, and I was saying that this was dedicated to her for her birthday. In talking to her last year at one of the funerals, she asked me how I could do such a good message for a person I didn't know well, and I told her I had about 7 or 8 funeral services that I could work and do. And she said when I do her funeral, I need to do a completely brand new service. And she chose this passage from Proverbs 31. And so I've actually heard this as a funeral service message before, concerning a wonderful woman that I knew, Mrs. Buchanan, who I had the privilege of doing her funeral. She was 104 when she passed away. So let's read Proverbs 31. And again, hopefully y'all can hear. If not, put a comment in the comment box so that I can know if y'all are hearing this. Proverbs 31 reads, "The saying of King Lemuel, an inspired utterance his mother taught him. Listen, my son. Listen, son of my womb. Listen, my son, the answer to my prayers. Do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. It is not for kings, Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, nor for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." So the first 9 verses of this we can see is the saying of King Lemuel, but it's not that he himself came up with this, but that his mother taught it to him. And as mothers, as this is dedicated to women, we see that that women has played an important part in all of life. And I will talk more about women in general and specifically women, some specific women. But here Lemuel's mother taught him these utterances, and she says this to him. The first advice to him is, "Listen, my son. Listen, son of my womb. Listen, my son, the answer of my prayer." She repeats the word listen not once, but 3 times to Lemuel, explaining to him, Listen to this because it is that important. It's so important. He said, son of my womb, And the first thing her advice to him is, do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. Lemuel was obviously going to be the king and ruler, and his mother was advising him, don't spend your time chasing after women in general. And then her next advice to him is, it is not for kings, Lemuel. It is not for kings. And then he points out that it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for rulers to crave beer. And what she's talking about is that as a leader, as a ruler, as the king, he should not get drunk and be dependent upon alcohol. Because here is the advice, and I think it's not just to kings, but anybody in leadership. If you become an alcoholic and you crave wine, and that's what alcoholism is, craving alcohol to the point that it ruins your life. And so her advice to Lemuel was, it is not for kings to drink wine and or rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. A couple things that I learned about leadership. I was a department head for 23 years as a head chaplain. And when I first became a head chaplain, I wasn't very good at it, unfortunately. And I had to learn how to become a head chaplain or how to become a pastor, etc. And one of the things that I learned is, as leaders, we are responsible for those who we lead. And a lot of people think of leadership as all the privilege you get, such as your parking spot, better pay, and those things. But in reality, what I had to learn was that leadership is about the people who you lead. And so Lemuel's mother reminds him, lest you drink and forget the important things, what has been decreed, and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. Because here's the thing, we are only leaders because you, as the people who we lead, follow us. I like what John Maxwell said about leadership. If you're leading, people follow. But if you think you're a leader and there's no followers, you're just really out for a walk. And the important thing about leadership is the people who are following you, they have rights, they have certain things. And as a leader, we should focus on how we support them and help them. She goes on and advises him in verse 6. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. And one of the things that I obviously I don't drink. As a matter of fact, I'm not against drinking. Jesus himself, one of the very first miracle recorded is him turning water into wine. But at the same time, it never said Jesus got drunk to the point where he was intoxicated. Here's the thing. I'm not against drinking, but I'm against alcoholism, and to the point where you are no longer in control of your faculties. And that's what the Bible is teaching. The drinking and over drinking and alcoholism is for those people who drink and forget their problems, their misery, and they remember their misery no more. And one of the things I learned from people who have undergone through AA and who are alcoholics is that they would drink to the point where they don't even remember, and the alcohol deadened the pain and hurt that they had. And for us as Christians, we don't need that crutch. For whatever hurt or pain we have, we can go to the Lord and ask for forgiveness. And especially as leaders, we need to remember that it's a privilege to lead people. And I could spend a lot of time on this part of this Proverbs, especially today, because we have a leadership problem, not only in our church, but also in the government. And the leadership problem in the church, I'll address briefly. As a United Methodist Church, we are undergoing some difficult times with our leadership. We have been in discussion about a vote of splitting, and the whole problems that the church is facing today. But it's not just the United Methodist, the church in general. Without good leaders, without leaders that have vision, the Bible clearly says, where there's no vision, the people perish. Leaders are the ones who provide the vision and the goal. And unfortunately, right now for our church, we are lacking in good leadership. Let's turn briefly about leadership in the government. We can go on and on about the leadership. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat. We live in America and we get to vote for them every 2 years, 4 years, or 6 years. But the important thing is that sometimes our leaders act irresponsibly and they do things. I mean, right now, as we saw, we had the riots last week. I talked about that last week too, how they were having riots in our country. And almost like if it's a banana republic where they are having coups and overthrows. And a big part of that is the divisive leadership that we currently have. And what leaders need to remember is they are there not for themselves, but to serve the people. And that's what Christ taught, a servant leadership model. Leaders taught that whoever is greatest among you should be the least or the servers. And so Lemuel's mother is advising him, don't get drunk and forget and deprive the oppressed of their rights, deprive the little people of their rights. Instead, listen to what her advice is in verse 8. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of those who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. So Lemuel's mother knew that he would be king, and she taught him to be a good leader means not about the privilege and the rights that you have, but to serve people and to speak up for others who are less fortunate, people who cannot speak for themselves, for the poor, the needy. And that's what we really need in our church and in our government and in our lives, is good leaders who will speak up for what is right. And I know I've been saying as Christians that we should always do the right thing for the right reason. And it is also our responsibility to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. So that's the first part of this study. I want to switch to the second part, which is about the character of a noble woman, a noble wife. Verse 10 reads, a wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and work with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night and provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds the staff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes covering for her beds. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gates, where he takes his seat amongst the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sell them, and supply the merchants with sausage. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. Obviously, Lemuel pointed out how the wife of a noble character and about women and how important they are. And I know how important women have played a part in my life. As a matter of fact, I mentioned that I dedicate this for women. Women are, and I hate to say it, in so many ways are more important than men. I'm a male, and I know when I said that, but in biology, the reality is biology teaches that the female gender is far more important than the male gender. Take the old farmer, for example, who have a herd of cattle. He usually only have one bull, but maybe 100 cows. And the reason for that is the cows is the most important part, be it if you're a dairy farmer or any other type of farmer, when it comes to things with animal. And it is true that women are more important for society today. I remember once I told my mother, thanks for the 9 months of free room and board. Obviously, the fact that I was conceived and had 9 months, and she goes on, son, you missed it. It was not only 9 months, but it was years. When you were born, you were helpless. I had to take care of you, feed you, change you, and do all those things. And I can truly say that women have played such an important role. Without my mother carrying me for those 9 months and caring for me in those young years and doing like Lemuel's mother did, teaching me, I would not be who I am today. I have a little saying, I don't know if y'all be able to see it. It says, and it reads, woman without her man is nothing. And the problem with that saying is depending on where you punctuate it. It could read women without her man is nothing. And it makes that the idea that women is nothing because they need man. But you can punctuate this where it says woman without her man is nothing. And I think that's the proper punctuation, that without women, man would be nothing. As a matter of fact, we see that God created woman because Adam could not do it all by himself, and how an important role women plays in our society. I already mentioned my mother. She was both my mother and father in many ways because I grew up single parent, and without her, I would not be here today. The 9 months of carrying me with her body, a lot of women today do abortion. I am so thankful. And beyond that, as she pointed out, the years of caring when I was little, and could not even care for myself. And then I think about my wife who did the same thing for my kids and who continue today caring for me as a wife. And that's what this proverb is about a wife of noble character. Who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. And I can say that my wife, like my mother, and I hope a lot of the women that are listening to this and the men that are listening can say, yeah, my wife and my mother and my kids are worth far more than rubies. They are worth more than money. Verse 11 said, her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. And what a great thing I can say about my wife. I have full confidence in her. As a matter of fact, I know she's a faithful, loving, caring, supportive spouse, and I have full confidence in her. And I lack for nothing of value because of her. There are many times I would do stupid things and Rosalie have corrected me. And I'm sure that any husband can say that about their wife because, as the old saying goes, behind any successful man is a better woman. And Rosalie have been 100% behind me and supported me. And I have full confidence in her. And because of her, I lack nothing. And I'm sure many of y'all can say that about your wives and about your mother. And hopefully we can say that about our daughters. And the next thing this Proverbs go on and talk about, verse 12 says, she brings him good, not harm. And what a great thing we can say about our mothers or wives and hopefully about our daughters. that they bring good about, not harm, all the days of her life. That's what verse 12 says. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. And then it starts pointing out what some of the good things is. She works hard. Verse 13 says, she selects wool and flax and work with eager hand. She is like the merchant ship, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night, and she provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it out of her earning and plant a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. And here it's talking about a woman who works. And I can honestly say my mother was a hard worker. As a matter of fact, she basically had 3 jobs. You know, she got up and baked stuff, and then she went to her first job, and then she went to her second job. But the third job was, baking the stuff to sell to make extra money and such. And as I read this proverb as a teenager and realized, how I was blessed with a wonderful mother, and how women have played such an important part in my life, and then to have a wonderful wife, I can say, she sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her task. It goes on in verse 18, it says, she sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In other words, she works, early in the morning until late at night. And I can honestly say that, for years when I went off to work and came back, Rosalie was up. She, helped me. She made breakfast. She made my lunch. She made my supper. She cooked, clean, and beyond that, she homeschooled the kids, and did the finance. I could go on, and that's what it says. She sets about her work visually. She sees that her trading is profitable. Her hands hold this distaff, and she grasps the spindle with her hand. And that's at a spinning wheel that she works to produce clothing and stuff. But beyond working hard, it says, verse 20 says, she opens her arms to the poor and extends her hand to the needy. And so we see that this woman of noble character not only cares and works hard for her family, but she also cares for the needy. And that speaks about us as Christians. We not only should care for our family, but we should also care for the less fortunate. And one of the good things I added last week, and I'm adding again this week, is at Richville, for example, the clothing ministry that we do. That 2 women started, Winnie and Mary, and helping the needy. It's such an important thing, because as Christians, we do have responsibility for our fellow human beings and to help those who are less fortunate. The scripture goes on in verse 21. It says, when it snows, she has no fear for her household. And we know about snow. It's going to snow in the next day or 2, and we're going to have a possible blizzard. But here's the thing. A household that does not fear is because of the work that the women do. I know just because of the snowstorm coming up, Rosalie made sure we had enough food put away, and the candles and stuff. You never know. And that's what that scripture is talking about. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are well off. And so here we see that women take care of things that I know I as a man may not think about. And I'm very happy to say I have a wonderful wife. It goes on and says she makes covering for her bed. She is covered in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gates, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. And I can say all the respect that I get is because of having a good home life. And the saying again, behind any good man is a great woman, is very true. And the scripture just reinforced that. And I'm sure that many of you all, especially the older women that are on here, their husband would say the same thing, that my wife supported me all these years, and I'm respected because of her. The scripture goes on and says she makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. And so we're talking about a woman who is a hard worker, who cares for her family, cares for her husband, and speaks with wisdom and dignity and provides for others beyond her family, the needy and such. Verse 27 kind of sums it up. She watches over the affairs of her household. That's the kind of woman that, is important for all of us in society. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. That means that she's a hard worker. And the verse kind of ends with these two thoughts. Her children arise and call her blessed. And just as I said how wonderful my mother was and how she provided for me, not only gave me life, my two daughters point out how wonderful Rosalie was. And I look forward for when I become a grandparent and the daughters can do the same thing as a wonderful woman. Her husband also praise her. And so not only do children, but husbands praise these wonderful women in their lives. But the second idea and the most important idea is picking up in verse 39. It says, many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. And so the most important thing that we see that the Proverbs is teaching us is that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of the understanding. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female. Fear of the Lord is beginning of understanding. And women, if you truly put your trust and faith in God and work hard, you will be a woman of noble character, be it a wife, a daughter, a sister. As I mentioned, women, without her, man is nothing. But the reality, even better than that, a woman who is a Christian woman who fears God and does God's will is worthy of praise. The scripture ends, it says, honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring praise at the city gate. And so I do today honor women, especially hardworking Christian women who have supported their husband, their children, and have supported others in time of need. We're living during some difficult times, but reality, I can truly say without women in the church would not be what it is today. The United Methodist Women has supported the church over the years. When I was in the Baptist church, the Baptist women supported the church. As a matter of fact, there are times that without the women, the church would fall. And women attend church more than anybody else. They play such a vital, important part. They are the teachers in churches. They are the ones who are leaders. And I can truly say without women in the church would be far, far less than it is today. And I want to say thank you for all the women of the church. And as I mentioned, this was dedicated especially to Carol Anderson. I have a funeral service developed just for her based on these verses. With that, we're almost out of time. Next week, we will be picking up in Ecclesiastes. So we just will turn the page and study Ecclesiastes. That's a very short book. And after that, we'll go into the New Testament. But several people wanted to do Ecclesiastes, and so I'll go ahead and do that. And I'm glad to see that Pam and Tad said the song is working fine. So I will see y'all next week. I'll go ahead and get ready for confirmation.